advisors, I'm super excited to introduce you to Elements in Real Life. This is a series of videos we're putting together to help you better understand how to do financial planning with Elements. Each week, Elements advisors will take real client questions and show you how they use the vital signs to provide real advice. So check it out, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hi, I'm Becky Walsh from Oak Maple Finance.
And I'm Brandon Galici from Galici Financial.
And today we'll be going over a Elements scorecard for a client.
Yeah, and Becky, I know this is someone that you work with, and I'm really excited to get into it. So why don't, for the advisors out there, you share their Elements scorecard and just a little bit more about them and what question we're going to be answering for them today using Elements.
That's great. So let me share my screen. So this client is a client I've been working with for well over 10 years now. And prior to when they stopped working, so they are in their mid-70s. He stopped working in his mid-60s. She stopped working in her early 70s. I've been working with them. I've known them well. I know what their worries are. And still, after all of the Monte Carlo planning, cash flow-based planning, projecting, okay, each year after each year, how much money you're going to need, how much money you're going to have, they were still super worried about their spending. So the question that Elements allowed me to answer for them, and really they answered for themselves once they started to learn how to use Elements, was, do I have to worry about my spending? So that's the question that we're going to answer with their scorecard today. So Brandon, are you seeing the scorecard up here on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So we're just going to focus on the term row today, and that's really all we need to do for many of our retiree clients. And I use Elements with all of my clients. Well over a third of them are retired, and I'm really focused on the term row for them because the other rows are less important in these situations, especially these situations where the Monte Carlo is going to show an extremely high rate of success no matter what. We don't need to get into the nitty-gritty planning. We can optimize, but what we're really looking to do is answer this question: do I need to be worried about my spending? So this client who loves data visualization, and we get into like the nitty-gritty on why I use a pie chart when I should be using a donut. So he's someone who understands data.
Big data guy.
A big data guy, right? So we've gone over the Monte Carlo scenarios. We've done probably 6 plan updates over the years, looking at projected cash flow. And still he had this nagging feeling of, oof, is it okay for us to spend this extra $1,000 or extra $3,000? So I introduced them to Elements just over a year ago, and they were really, he's an early adopter with technology. So he was so excited to get it on his phone, and I was excited to work with another early adopter. And so he very quickly grasped, because Elements is so intuitive for so many people, what he was doing in the app. And what we got to was this point where we see a total term of nearly 50. Now remember, Brandon, these folks are in their mid-70s. So this is going to bring them to 125. We have joked for years and years and years about the longevity that's in his family, his uncle living to 108. We want to plan for longevity for them. 125, probably we don't need to go that far. And that's one piece that my retiree clients grasp so quickly, is that when their age plus that total term gets them to an age that is far older than they'll ever possibly live to be, I just see, we talk about the light bulb moment. It's so much better than the light bulb moment. It's this like weight of the world off of their shoulders moment. It's this, okay, I get that. Because the numbers that we're talking to them about, what does $1.3 million mean to somebody who's 75? I don't know. Is that enough? Is that not enough? Right. So backing up about these clients. So their portfolio is about 1.3 million. The amount of spending that their portfolio needs to support is about 42,000 per year. And that is after their fixed income sources of pension and Social Security. So Brandon, when I have this, I'll take a breath here in a second, but when I have this scorecard up here, what jumps out at you? as a planner who's just seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, and even specifically, Becky, in that context of, I think you said his question was, can I stop worrying about money or something to that effect? Instantly, I agree with you, Becky. I'm looking at that total term. So his net worth divided by annual spending almost being 50 years. You already said you said he was in his 70s or mid 70s. I mean, that to me is so sufficient. So that's the first one, high level. And then the other one too, and we talked about this right before this podcast, was then I'd want to look at maybe the real estate term. Is that inside of vacation homes? Is it primary equity? But even we'll just say that that's 100% his primary residence. He still has a total term of somewhere around 31, even not factoring in touching any of his home equity or investment properties in the future.
And that's a really great point, Brandon. So bringing this over here, it is entirely the primary residence, and he did not want to include that in looking at his total term. He's intending for their primary residence to be transferred as the inheritance for their kids. Another thing I mentioned is that they have long-term care insurance, so their care needs are covered. So really, this portfolio is to support their basically discretionary needs, because their basic income of Social Security and pension covers their necessities. They can spend their portfolio for 31 years. So again, 75 plus 31, they're going to be okay. And when he saw this, so this is actually what he looks at when he looks at elements. He has taken the value of his house out of his element scorecard because he doesn't want to be looking at that. But that number 31, that he responded to that, he told me unprompted. I didn't say, how are you liking elements? He came in and he said, elements saved me. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And all of this that we've just been talking about, Brandon, is why he said that elements saved him, because he then booked that trip. He then booked the cruise on the European river cruise. And in this really special window of time that he has, you know, between work being done and the body still being able to do the things that he wants to do, Elements is allowing him to do that without worrying about his money.
And that's the real why. I mean, yes, Elements is awesome. Elements is a great tool and it makes things simple, but it makes things simple so that our clients can have that kind of experience and they can live their life more fulfilled now, right? Like that's the whole point of, I think, why a lot of us got into this industry. And that's even why we're having this conversation, while you're having conversations with this particular client. Like, it's not that important that solely his total term is 31.6. It's the meaning behind those numbers. And I think you even asked earlier, is $1.3 million a lot? And instead of just being able to say, it depends, now we are able to see this inside of this client's context where, yes, $1.3 million is a lot because it's almost 32 years worth of spending. And again, like you said, the client it's just so simple. Like, hey, do you think you're going to live like 32 more years? And oh, by the way, we haven't even factored in any kind of growth or assumptions or anything like that. Like, this is just a snapshot in time today. And then you're still able to do this on an ongoing basis. I mean, Becky, you've already been working with him for over 10 years, you said. You're going to continue to work with him throughout the remainder of his life. So this is an ongoing conversation where if, God forbid something does happen, you're going to be able to be proactive and say, hey, actually, our total term is now 35 because of the last couple of years of investment growth. Please spend more money, or create this trust for your kids. Again, whatever that conversation leads you, this is a great hub inside of Elements that is really the kickoff for that. What's most important, that meaningful conversation.
And that meaningful conversation, Elements allows us to get to it so quickly. We are not, so he has, especially when clients are able to engage with the app on their own, on the phone, he is able to look at these numbers on his own. He already has this intuitive sense. We don't need to go over the numbers again. We can just jump into that conversation. And it makes the meetings more rewarding for the client, and it gives the clients the tools that they need to take that breath and realize, okay, we're going to be okay, or we need to adjust this little thing here. But that it's I can't say enough great about Elements, and Brandon, you know that, and you and I are ambassadors for a reason. But it's been fun, and that when that client walked into a meeting one day and said, "Elements saved me," I thought, All right, you are prone to hyperbole, but I get what you're saying. And I'm so happy to hear that you've booked that cruise, because we didn't have to go over, before booking that cruise, we didn't have to go over the cash flow projections one more time.
Right. Right. It's like, what helps? Hey, you have a 97.235% chance. So I'm 97.2375% confident that you can book this cruise. Or, hey, you have 32 years worth of spending. Which
You
one
have
makes more?
32 years later for the spending. If you book this cruise, that's gonna come down to 31.8. And like, oh, that's all right. That's all right. It's going to be okay.
This was so good. Well, thank you so much for this. Like, I'm so excited just seeing your energy and sharing from this conversation. So I'm getting the secondhand benefit of just hearing from this story. And I'm sure all the advisors that are watching this as well can just see your passion and really see the ultimate why. How do we have more meaningful conversations? And Becky, to your point, not only meaningful conversations, but get to those meaningful conversations quicker.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better, Brandon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Becky.
Thank you.
So, what did you think about that? We'd love to hear your thoughts about how we answered that question. Do you think that you would have answered it differently? Comment below and let us know. Now, if you have a scorecard that you want us to dissect, or a client question you want answered using elements but aren't sure how, send us the client's one-page plan to cs@getelements.com, and we hope to catch you next time.